Hey guys, how are you all doing today? Hope you guys are doing fantastic as always. The BMW 435i is a fantastic car and an absolute bargain in the secondhand automotive world. We have a two-door coupe with sleek, sporty styling, tons of luxury amenities and features which enable a very supple and comfort ride, and of course the performance and power to back up just about everything and top the car off like the icing on a cake. What's not to love about the BMW 435i? In fact, many of us watching this video are probably looking to purchase one in the used or secondhand market, and values have significantly come down. You can pick up a really clean example of a 435i for around $20,000 to $25,000, even less depending on a number of factors such as mileage, options, spec, etc., etc. So to make it simple for all of you, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what you need to look out for when purchasing a used BMW 435i. If you guys could go ahead and smash that thumbs up button as well as subscribe to the channel down below, click the bell notifications to get notified whenever I post a new video. I make tons of awesome informative content on all things automotive related. I'd really appreciate that. Let's get right into this video. So just as a quick disclaimer, I think it's pretty important to note that the BMW 435i is based off the F32 chassis, which shares many structural and design components from the F30 generation and the 3 Series as a whole. As a result, much of this platform can be compared to something like the BMW 335i as well as the M235i, because many of the mechanical components are very similar, if not the exact same, on these different models. So what I talk about here with the 435i is largely applicable to those cars as well. So what should you look out for when you're purchasing your 435i? Well, just to begin, it's important to do just a basic check of the overall car. Obviously, check the exterior, check for scrapes under the front bumper, check for damage to the paint. If the paint is heavily swirled up, you can tell whether or not the car was maintained well from an exterior perspective or a cosmetic perspective. Look for fading clear coat, look for scratches, dings, dents, etc. Those are just basic things that you should go over. Coming into the interior, obviously you want to check the leather, see if there's any significant wear. Are there any tears? If so, these BMWs use like a synthetic form of leather, and it actually is pretty hard to get them to wear down really bad or to tear them. So if that is the case, then that is a big sign that the owner abused the car or did something bad. The leather on these cars is very, very durable. Obviously, you want to check the dashboard, check for any plastic cracks or fading spots, sunspots. That's another big thing, you know, to see if the car was sitting in the sun all day or was it garaged. These are really telltale items and signs that can help indicate whether or not this car was taken care of from a cosmetic standpoint. Additionally, you also want to know what the vehicle is and what options it has. Does it have the wider iDrive screen with the technology package? Does it have things like blind spot assist, lane departure warning, you know, early brake activation if the car detects that you're getting too close to a vehicle in front of you, which you can find on the left side of the dashboard underneath the headlight switch. There will be a couple buttons to indicate that. Also check to see if the car has the different cameras, parking sensors, and of course you want to test all of these things to the best of your own ability. Obviously test all the cameras, test the parking sensors, go through the entire car, test the sound system, test the radio, test the iDrive screen, make sure the dual zone climate control works, make sure your heated seats work, make sure the LCD displays both on the climate and the iDrive system aren't fading, they aren't pixelated, that everything works just as it should. And you basically just want to thoroughly go through the car. Now you would do this of course with any car, and this is almost a given, but of course I want to make sure that you guys know exactly what to look for. If the car has the M Sport package, check to make sure that it has the diffuser, that it has the correct side skirts, the front bumper. That is all indicative of an M Sport package vehicle. If the vehicle was decked out with M Performance parts or was a ZHP edition, make sure it has that front lip, that carbon fiber rear spoiler. Make sure it still has the M Performance exhaust or the rear diffuser. Those are all things that you want to look out for, and if the dealership claims one thing or another and something doesn't match, then that's something that you can obviously negotiate down on the price with, and in the long run that'll save you some money. Now, what are some specific F32 or F30 chassis issues to look out for or be wary of? With these cars, one of the most prominent issues, which was quite annoying for quite some time, was the electronic steering racks. Essentially, you'd be driving the car and you'd feel kind of slop or play in the steering. You could feel a weird clunking sensation going over bumps, or when turning the wheel, you feel these weird clicking just something was off with the steering system of the car, and that was basically a telltale symptom of a failing electronic steering rack on these cars. Now, with this generation of the F30s, BMW had switched over from a previously sorted hydraulic steering rack to an electronically assisted steering rack, which came with some issues, unfortunately, especially in the earlier model years. Now, with the 4 Series being introduced later than the 3 Series in the model year 2014, many of these steering racks have been revised. I think in total, BMW went through about 5 revisions with the steering rack system, but nevertheless, it is still an issue that has plagued some 4 Series cars. So do a thorough test of the steering when you're driving. Make sure to feel for any clunking, any weird bumps or hiccups in the steering itself, any slop or rattling. That could be a telltale sign of a problematic steering rack. The powertrain for the 435i is very, very robust. You have the N55 inline-6 turbo engine, which I actually did an overview of the issues that are very common on that, which I'll throw up right here. But in summary, you want to look for cracked charge pipes, oil leaks from the oil filter housing gasket, the valve cover gasket, as well as potentially the oil pan gasket if the car is really high mileage, most likely past 100,000 miles, which, to be honest, not many 435i's are at that mileage range just yet. If possible, request from the dealership or the owner a Carfax of the vehicle as well, and check to see if they have any service records from their ownership. And rather than issues, I would consider most of these preventable maintenance items or just wear and tear items that tend to happen over time. These gaskets can tend to start leaking oil, and it is a good idea to get them taken care of as soon as possible, especially if you are noticing that your engine is leaking oil to a certain extent. With a failing valve cover gasket, you can generally smell burning oil after the engine has been warmed up properly, and sometimes it can be so bad to the point where you will literally see smoke coming from the valve cover engine because oil is literally burning off in real time. The oil filter housing gasket as well, you can start to see oil build up and oil kind of caked onto the oil filter housing assembly of the vehicle, and a lot of times that oil can drip down, it can land on different belts and accessory items of the engine, and it can also collect and pool up on the floor of the engine where the under tray would normally sit. Charge pipe you can also thoroughly inspect by just looking closely at it. You can check to see if it's popped off by any chance or if there's a crack in it. A failing charge pipe could indicate power loss, boost leaks, potential limp mode, but generally for the most part you're not going to really be able to tell that on a test drive, unfortunately, but it is something to be wary of and just to look at, take a quick look at it, make sure that for the most part everything looks intact with the vehicle's charge pipe, which for the most part it should be. The N55 itself, like I said, is a very robust engine. It doesn't have a whole lot of major issues aside from that. There is fortunately no real Achilles heel. It's not super common to have rod bearing issues, especially with these newer electronic wastegate N55 variants. Also, the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission is a very, very well built piece of tech, and really you shouldn't expect to have any issues with that as long as the car has been serviced on time. Automatic transmission fluid, BMW claims it has a lifetime service interval, but that's really not true. Lifetime considering lifetime of a lease, but beyond that you do want to eventually get that changed out as well. It would also be a good idea to inspect the different coolant lines amongst the engine, especially with the heat that the engine can produce, and areas like Southern California or maybe a climate like a state in Arizona where it's really, really hot. You can start to see some excessive or premature wear of the coolant lines. They can get kind of soft, they can get brittle and prone to basically popping open and spraying out coolant. This actually happened on a friend of mine. His BMW 435i, the auxiliary fan actually burnt out, and it appears that it was an electrical issue that caused the fan to overheat, and his coolant temps were starting to spike a little bit. At one point it did throw the car into a limp mode, and unfortunately it also caused one of the coolant lines to basically rupture and spray a lot of coolant, so he had to get that replaced and the fan as well. But aside from those issues and small minute hiccups, these cars have been actually engineered quite well, and the F-Series are very, very well built BMWs in terms of durability. Of course, you want to look at things like the heads-up display, make sure all of that works. Check underneath the bumper, go ahead and swing your foot under it to make sure that the trunk automatically kicks up. You also want to check the condition of the seats, as I stated previously. Check the condition of the plastics, make sure that the doors have a nice solid thunk, make sure all the electronics work properly. Just take your time going through the car and never feel pressured by a salesman or someone at a dealership to purchase a car or to make you feel rushed when looking at a car. You take as much time as you need to do that, because at the end of the day, you are spending a lot of money, and this is a car that you're going to be potentially owning, so you want to make sure you are buying the best possible car that you can get yourself into. Now that about sums it up for what you should look out for when purchasing a BMW 435i. It's actually not too complicated of a list, and for the most part, very straightforward with the kinds of things to expect with these cars, and what you should look for going into the purchase of one in the second-hand market. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and again, if you could please hit that thumbs up button as well as subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take it easy, guys.